Greetings once again. You are welcome to our channel. Today we will be discussing how to create or build a login system using PHP and MySql. And today's tutorial will be based on object-oriented programming style of coding called OPP. This style of coding called OPP will be in a simplified manner and an easy to understand approach. I will make it very easy for you guys to understand. In object-oriented programming, we talk about class, methods, objects, and so on and so forth, inheritance, encapsulation, thereabouts. But today, we will not be learning object-oriented programming in details, but we will use the approach in building the very system. If you're not familiar with object-oriented programming, definitely you might not really understand what you are doing here. But I will try as much as possible to make it an easy to understand tutorial. Today's tutorial will be a bit lengthy because it's going to cover a lot of things. On this project, it has to do with a login system, user dashboard. Within the user dashboard, there is option for you to update your profile or reset your password, after which you log out from the system. So these things will be discussed on this tutorial. As I said before, it will be a little bit lengthy, and I will try as much as possible to explain it in the way that you guys will understand. First and foremost, this is the final project. Don't mind my design. It might not look professional, it's for the sake of this tutorial, but the main thing here is for you to understand how it works, how to automate the login system, carry out other functionality within the dashboard, as well as to log out from the system. If you watch my previous tutorial, where we discuss how to create accounts and also to send emails using SwiftMailer. So in today's tutorial, we'll be talking about the login system. Now let's go into the project in details. Like I said, I will in every point I get to, I will explain how it works within my class file. Instead of me explaining the class file entirely, I will explain them after the other as we approach to where a particular method is being used. Now, for instance, this is the system. Let me try to log in. Okay, I try to click on this submit button, and it says user or password not found, email or password not found. So let's assume I insert a very valid email address and password, and I click on login. Now it says you are welcome, Michael Williams. This is my dashboard, a mini dashboard. Here you can update the user account. Let's assume I set it to mail, and country I set it to USA. Okay, when I submit, it says profile update was successful. Okay, as you can see, it has taken effect. Okay, now here is for me to reset my password, and for you to reset your password, you have to input the current password. Let's assume I put a random password which is not the correct one, and I put a valid new password and a valid confirmation new password. It says current password not correct, try again. Now in this case, let me insert the valid current password and a valid new password, but the confirmation will be a little bit different from the first password I inserted. It says password mismatch because the new password here and the confirmation do not match. So let's assume I insert a valid password, the new password and the confirmation is the same as the new password, and I submit the form. It says password update was successful. Thank you. Now this is just how the system works. You can include this approach on your project. And the last thing to check on this portal is logging out of the system. When I log out of the system, it takes me back to the home page. When I try to go back with the back button, it brings me back to this point because while logging out, the session has expired. Okay, by logging out, you have expired or deleted all the sessions. Therefore, the system will redirect you to the home page or the login page based on the script, based on the instruction given to it. Now let's discuss the code in details. First of all, this is our index.php page. Okay, in this index.php page, it has to do with this very design you are seeing here. Okay, now this design was done using Bootstrap version 4.6.2. This you can see the distribution version here. Okay, this is used to echo the response, whatever be the response. Okay, here is my form tag with the method post. The email has a type of email. The name is email, and the password name is password, and the submit button name is login now. Okay, everything is self-explanatory if you are familiar with HTML and CSS and Bootstrap. Now, the first thing to do is to check if this button was clicked. Okay, now I say, first of all, I try to include my class file. Okay, I try to include my class file here. Then next I declare the reply button, the reply variable to be an empty string, which is what you have here. It is empty because on page load, without this declaration, let me comment on this. Now without this declaration, on page load there will be an error telling that undefined variable, something similar to it. So let me reload this page and see what will be the response. You see the response? Undefined variable reply on line 41, and this is line 41 here. So for you not to have that error, you have to declare an empty variable here. Okay, that is been done. Then after that, the next thing to do is to check if the submit button was clicked. If it's post, if it said post is a global variable in PHP, and this is the form name, the button name, which is login now. Okay, we are using post because the method here is post. Okay, that's just it. I'm trying to say, if we set post, then once the button is being clicked, everything within this session will be executed. That is the reason why they are all within this code block. Okay, we call this curly brace. Okay, this is the code block. Now the first thing I did was to declare two variables, one for the email and one for the password. Now, trying to access the email and the password field, I declared I use this very object called account data. It's an object created by me within my class file. I call it account data, Then this is a method within my class file. This method tries to validate and filter the input of the email field. The same thing is applicable to that of the password field. Now in this case, I'm trying to say, then I declare a variable called user, and I say user equal to account data. Then this is a method within my class file. Within my class, it has two arguments, the email and the password. Then now, at the end of this very method, it either returns true or false. Okay, then I say if this method here returns true, then it should redirect the user to account/dashboard.php. Remember here on my root folder, I have a folder called account. Inside the account, I have another file called dashboard.php. Okay, that is where this thing comes in. If we don't get it twisted, and otherwise, if it returns false, then it should give an error message that error email and password not found. Okay, and after 3 seconds, with the help of this meta tag, after 3 seconds it will reload the page. Okay, remember this will be the error response if this very method, this login method returns false. Now let's go back to our script web browser. Let's assume I put a valid email address. This is the password. Okay, I'm going to add one figure to it to change the password from what it should be. Then when I click on login, you see the error here, email and password not found, and it has to reload after 3 seconds. Let's assume I increase it to 10 seconds. Then we'll have to wait for 10 seconds for it to load. So let's send this different email. I say login. You see, says email or password not found, because the very function or method they return 8 seconds has succeeded or has elapsed. Okay, no, the error message came up because this very method in my class file wasn't true, it was false. If it was true, it will redirect us to the dashboard.php file. Okay, and let me try to log in with a different account, and I say login. You see, say welcome Gate. Okay, so we are able to access this page because the method login returned true. Okay, so let's assume I change something here. Maybe add something like Texas here, for instance, and I submit. Let me add a comma. Profile was successful. Sorry about that. You see, it's there. Now, having understood what I'm trying to say here, now it's time for me to explain the class file. Okay, explain the class file so that you understand what I am trying to talk about here. Okay, now let me open my class file. Okay, the first thing I did here after declaring creating a class, I called my class account. Okay, I declare 4 variables. I use 4 variables here. This identifier probably means that the variable will be public to all the class and subclass or parent and child class, as the case may be. Now the first variable there is the host. I call it the local host. That's the server which I'm trying to query. Okay, and the user is password. Okay, the user is root, the password is empty, and database in question is business. You can create any database of your choice if it pleases you. Then, for instance, let me try to access my database here as a local host. PHP admin. Okay, so this is my business database. Inside my business database, I have a table called customer. Okay, I have a database called customer. As you can see, that's the two data I have on my database. So that is by the way. Now, going back to the script, I created a method in OPP we call functions method. Okay, functions and method are the same thing. Okay, if you are when using object-oriented terms, it's good that you refer to it as method. So I created a method called connect. What is the function of this connect? Somebody may ask. This function establish a kind of connection to a database, and that is the connection we will be using throughout the script. Now I create a variable called connection equal to MySql underscore connect. You may use other form of MySQL engines, for instance, Pod, PDO, or this case may be satisfied to use MySQL. Okay, now I called the host. Remember, this very function is a MySQL, a PHP function that connects to a database, and it comes with a minimum of three or four arguments. Okay, the first is the host. I'm trying to reference the host here. The second is the user, database user. I'm on my local machine, so I'm using root. The password is unchanged, but then I assign password to it, and the database in question is business. Okay, then if this connection is true, then I'm trying to return this connection. But if you are working on a more secure project, there is need for you to do some validation here to check if connection was successful or not. If connection was successful, there should be a kind of error message to be displayed telling the user or the webmaster that the connection wasn't successful. If it is successful, then you should return true. But in this case, I didn't do all those validation in order to save time. So now I returned this connection. So once this connection is returned, if it is returned, definitely if it is true, it will be returned. Okay. If it is false, then it will cause problem on our project. Then after that, I declared another method called disconnect. This method is used to terminate an existing connection, because the reason for it to terminate connection at some point is because when you have too many connections running, it will make your server to get slow, and it will cause a lot of problems, and it will even give a kind of loophole for attackers to penetrate your server through SQL injection. So it's always advisable for you to close your connection at every given time. So I use the method or function called MySQL underscore close in order to close this very connection I have here. Now, forging ahead, there's another method I use called validate data. If you remember, we use that method to validate these inputs. So I'm still logging in. Use it to validate these inputs, okay, to get rid of unwanted characters here. So that's the work of this very method. This method, it has only but one argument. Okay, these things are PHP functions. They do one thing or the other in a slightly different manners. You can still look them up. I wouldn't go ahead. I don't have much time to explain these things. These things are simple functions, PHP functions. If you're familiar with PHP, or even if you're new to PHP, you'll definitely come across these functions. Okay, this is used to strip slashes. For instance, if I should include an email address here, and I include something like this or like this, by logging in, it will get rid of those slashes automatically. Okay, this is used to get rid of tags. If I should include HTML tag, something like this, it will get rid of this tag. Okay, or this has to do with HTML special characters. It will get rid of those special characters, like like the @ sign and symbol, currency symbol sign, all those special characters in HTML. This is also used to add slashes. Peradventure, is someone trying to execute some kind of SQL injection command, it adds slashes to it. By so doing, it will alter the instruction the person must have given through the text box or text area. Now, having done that, remember, before we logged in, this is used to validate the user input. Okay, the next thing on the login script there we have is the login method, which is this method. Remember, the method has two arguments. The method has two arguments. Okay, okay, so I'm trying to get something right. I'm coming. Okay, so remember, this method has two arguments here, the email and the password. Okay, so here I'm trying to say, first I declare the connection. I call it con equals to disconnect. Okay, remember we're talking about this very method. I'm trying to reference this method. And in object-oriented programming, whenever you want to refer to a method within the class, okay, you use this command, you use this to reference a method within the method within the class. Okay, if you're trying to call a method within a class, you use this. Okay, then I declare a variable called the result. I say MySql query. This is a PHP MySql query. Okay, method, and it comes with the following arguments. First, it comes with two arguments. First is the connection and the query to be executed. So I haven't referenced the connection, which is here. Then I say select all from customer where email equal to email provided here. So what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to select from the business database, go to the customer table. Remember this? Okay, go to the business table, say select where email equal to the email that was provided on the text box. Okay, then I declare another variable called login found user. Okay, then this is a PHP function or method function that queries, that tries to validate what you have on the query. Okay, I'm trying to get the total number of rows. That is, if this is true. If there's any if there's a column, no, if there's a row within the customer table that has where the email of that row is equal to the email that was provided here. I don't know if it's well understood. What I'm trying to say is this: select all from the customer database, from the customer table in the in the business database. Remember, this is the business database we're talking about. So inside the customer table, check for the column, the user that has the email address that was provided here. That is to say, now in this case I'm trying to add, then after that I said if found user, that means if there is a column within the customer table where the email address is the same as the email address that was provided here, and I say if found user, that means if there's an existing user of that email, then everything within this code block will be done, will be executed. What is the first query? Then I use a while. This is a loop, a loop, a PHP loop, okay? sorry about that. This is a while loop, okay? Remember, in PHP we have different types of loop. We have the for loop, they do while loop, they do the while loop, and so on and so forth. But in this case I'm using the while loop, and I say while row equal to MySql fetch array. This is a function, PHP function, to fetch data from database, okay, to display data that was fetched on the database, okay. Then having done that, I'm trying to grab the user information of this very particular customer that has the email address that was provided here, okay. Then once I'm trying to query the entire file, okay, try to query the entire table, then I say password verify. If password verify is a method in PHP that tries to compare password that was the form password and the database password. Remember, our database password was hashed. It was hashed. It cannot be decoded, okay. So in order to verify if this hash algorithm is the same with what the user has imputed here, that's what I'm trying to do here now. Then I say if password verify, compare the password on the form and the password on the database. Remember, we use row here because we declared a variable called row, okay. Then the row is trying to grab columns of the customer table. Now, which column am I trying to verify? Am I trying to get data from? I'm trying to get the password column. Remember, in my customer table there's a column called password, okay. This is the column for the password. Then I said if the password verify, if this is true, that is to say the password the user provided and the password on the database, if they are the same, then the next thing to check is if the user is active, okay. Remember, I created another column here. I say is active equal to 1. If row is active equal to 1, that means the profile is activated. If it is activated, then start a session, okay. Start a session, then create a session variable called user. And the user, the value of this user session will be the user ID, which is this. This is the user ID, okay. So from the password, from the email provided and the password that has been verified, if they are true, automatically this user ID will be assigned to that session. That is how we know the particular user that was logged in. So now, if these checks are true, then it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. That is to say that the account, these two passwords do not match. It will return false if these two passwords do not match, okay. Otherwise, then if by venture at the end of the first query, which is the at the end of this checking, That is to say, if there's an existing rule on the customer table that has this email address, if there's no customer with this email address, it will return false as well. Okay, that's the reason why if you should insert maybe let me say something like this: bills at Microsoft.com. Automatically, no, from my customer table, there's no user with that type of email. So even if I try to log in, it will still give me the same error message. In your own case, you can still change you can still modify the response that will be returned depending on, maybe for instance, if the error was invalid password, to display invalid password. If the error was that new user was fine, it will display new user was fine. But in most cases, it's not good for you to be specific with the type of error that occurred, because being specific will give an attacker an insight of where to set his or her target from. Okay, in this case now, if the response is that the password does not match, the attacker will know that, okay, there's a user with that particular email. He or she will keep on trying with different mechanisms to penetrate the database. Okay, so sometimes it's not good for you to be specific with your responses from server, for attackers not to know what is the reason why this project the login failed. Okay, so now having done that, I think that is the only thing you need to know about this login method we created. Okay, now let me go back to the index.php page. So I believe that this home page has been explained the way you will understand it. Remember, okay, there's something left here, which is this very object you see here. Now let me show you how this object was created. So I keep on popping up this stuff because the software I use in recording my screen is preventing me from navigating left and right. Okay, sorry about that. So there's something I failed to activate before I started this stuff. Now let me show you about the object I created. Here is the object. Okay, I created an object, account data equal to new account. This new account I'm talking about is the class name. Okay, which is this class name here. So this is an object-oriented concept in a simplified manner, though in a bigger project we apply a lot of the mechanism in order to have a project function as expected. So now that is what you will need to know about the login method. Now the next thing for us to talk about is, on a successful login, it takes us to our dashboard. Okay, now what are the things left? The things left is to update the user profile and update password, as well as to log out. Now we'll start with the dashboard. This is the dashboard. Remember, you still have to include your class. This is where my class is located. Okay, I go back. My class is look assets and class.php. Okay, so you must include your class file in any page you want to make use of the class. Now, the first thing I did was to call my object and the user session method. Okay, then what is in that user session method? Let's discuss user session method in a brief. User session method. Okay, this is the method. It starts from here all the way to this point. Okay, now what? Let's discuss it. In the user session method, first I try to check with the session variable, which is this, if it is available or started. If it is not started, then we have to start it. Without starting your session variable with this very command, session underscore start, anywhere that session is to be used, once PHP come across that line of code, it will flag an error that some session not found or thereabout. Okay, so I'm trying to say here, if not, this is, we call this not. Okay, if not is set session. I'm trying to say, if session is not available, then start session. Okay, then the next thing I did was to declare a variable, which is to still go to. I asked the software if there's no session running and someone wants to access the dashboard.php page and there's no active session for that particular user, then take the person to this very page, which is index.php. So I said, if not is set session user. Remember, user is the session we created on the login. Okay, if we go to our login page, if we go to our login method, this is our login method. Remember, we created a session called user. Okay, and we assign it to the value of the user ID on the database. So in this case, now I'm trying to say, if the user session, if there's no user logged in, if there's no valid user found on the session, then redirect the user to index.php for them to sign in again. Okay, remember, in PHP, session expires whenever you close your web browser. So if by any chance the user should close his or her web browser and try to go back to the dashboard.php file, the user will be redirected to the index.php for him or her to log in afresh. Then having done that, the next thing I did was to create a session for a particular user. Then I say, if a set session, this is the user session we were talking about here. That now we are saying that if session is available. Here I said if session is not available, take the person to restricted page, which is this. Okay, well, in this case I'm trying to say, if the session is available, then create a session for user email equal to this. Okay, equal to the user from the login page. Okay, then I said select all having connected to having established a connection. So select all from customer where email equal to this particular store user. Remember, what we have here is the user ID. Hope you know. This is, we have our user ID here based on our login method. So I'm trying to say now, select all from customer where the customer email is equal to this user ID or the user ID of the login user. So now by referencing user ID, we will get hold of the name, email, gender of that particular user. Okay, so having done that, we executed our query and we turn true, then we close the connection. Okay, now, so this is what we're talking about here. Then now somebody may ask, how are we able to grab or to know the name of the current user? Okay, or how do we come about displaying it on the screen? Now let me go to my HTML form on the dashboard. Remember, we started the session here, okay? Then I declare the session, I declare a variable called user ID and assign it to the user session. Remember, from the database, from the login query or method, we created this thing. So this user ID is equal to the registered user or the logged in user, okay? Then I went down straight to the form, okay? I went down straight to the form. Here, this is a h2 tag, heading 2 meta tag. Then I called, there's another method called user data. It has 2 arguments, okay? Now let's go back to our class file to understand user data method. This is the user data method, okay? Then it has 2 arguments, column and the user ID. Then first we declare connection as usual. Select column. We're going to say now, select column. This column could be name, age, gender, email, password, as the case may be said. Select column from customer where user ID, which is this user ID, where this user ID is as the same or equal to the user ID that was provided here. If it is true, run the query, fetch the data and display the data. We use the return to display the data on the screen, okay? Here now, then what am I going to do? I open my PHP tag. I said echo. Remember, this is an object. This is the method. The 2 arguments. Now I'm trying to call the name and the user ID. Remember, this user ID is gotten from here. The user ID is based on the session we created while logging into the portal. Okay, so this is the reason why we said here welcome name. Okay, so going back to this session part of the dashboard, we said welcome begin. Okay, someone will be asking, why is it displaying in this manner? It's because of the CSS being used. Remember, I called the class here called blink. This is the class blink, and this is the style for the blink. Okay, so this is responsible for this animation you're seeing here. Okay, and you use the same approach for the rest of the form, email, gender. The only thing you have to change here, when you go to the value, you echo the same thing. Name, here you want to echo for the email, you change it to the email. The user ID remains constant. Gender, address, state. Okay, now in this country, we did the same thing on the country. We echoed the country, then we made it selected. So from the country selection button, in case if you want to change your country, the very user country will be the first to be displayed because it has this attribute of selected. Okay, so that is just it. Then in order for we to update the user profile, remember we have a button here called submit now. It has the name of update data. Okay, remember we're opening the name. So in order to update the user profile, I said if it's post update data, we are using post because the form method is post. Where is it? The form method here is post. Okay, actually we don't really need this because we're not submitting any file. Okay, We use this whenever you want to, maybe you want to upload image or thereabout or other form of files. So this very attribute is not really necessary for this very project, though I intended to add image upload, but later left it behind. Then we said if is post of this data, I created these variables for the name, email, gender, address, state, and country. Remember, we use this method to validate our user input. Okay, then there is a method called update user update profile with the following sorry about that, with the following arguments. Now going back to our class file, user updates profile. Okay, this is the method. It has this. So the same approach, we say select all from customer where user ID is equal to this user ID that is provided from the argument. Okay, if there's an existing user, that is if rows greater than 0, that means there's a user with this user ID. Okay, if it's greater than 0, then we said update customer, set name equal to this name. Okay, set email equal to this email, gender, address, state, country, where user ID equal to user ID in the argument. Okay, without including this where clause, when you update a profile, every record on the database will be updated with that current profile, irrespective of who is being logged in. So we use the where clause to affect or to update a particular record. Okay, once that is done, we return it true. Otherwise, if it wasn't successful, we return it as false. So that is what we did here. Okay, so now I'm trying to then here the user ID will get its value from here. Email name, email address, state will get its value from here. Then if this query, if it is successful, we will get a response that success, profile update was successful, thank you, and it will refresh after 3 seconds. Otherwise, it will give an error message that an error occurred while updating your profile. Okay, such error will only occur if there was connectivity error to the server, or something happened and MySql couldn't process, couldn't interact with the database. Okay, so say profile was successful. That is the message we got from here. Then the next thing to do now, having understood how we updated the profile, the next thing to do is to update the password. Okay, we use the same approach. Password, if it's a password, update password, this is the password field. This is the password field. Okay, here's the method of post. The name is current password, the new password is new password, then the other is confirm new password, and this is the button name, update password. Update password. Okay, now in order to do this, there is a method we created already called where's the method we created? Okay, let me start from afresh here. We created a variable user password, and we called the user data method and want to get the password, and they are based on the user that was logged into the system. Then the current password, which is this particular field. Okay, this will get the value from that field. New password, we'll get it from the new password field, which is this new password and confirm as the case may be, and this is the confirm. Then in order for me, because the password was hashed, there is no how one will know the particular password the user has imputed upon registration, for instance. Now we use the verify. Remember, during the login, we made use of this method verify. It has two arguments. Okay, the user supplied password and the database password. And the database password will get its value from here, which is the user value. Okay, what it will return this hash password. Okay, it will return the hash password. Then I said if password verify, if the password provided by the user is the same as the hash password of the database, then if it is the same, every instruction within this block will be executed. Otherwise, it will give an error message that current password does not match. That is, if these two passwords, if they are not the same, it will give an error message that the current password does not match. Okay, but in a case whereby they are the same, what will happen? Then let's go to the code explanation. Then we say here, if new password is not equal to the confirmation password, that is to say, if the values the user inputted here and the confirmation, if they do not match, that is the reason we say if not, if this not equal to this, then it will give an error message, password mismatch, try again. Else, that is if this new password is equal to new password, is equal to confirm password, then else we say password hash equals to, now we are trying to hash the new password. In order for you to hash a password, just to have this kind of data or this kind of values, okay, we use the password hash to hash a password. Okay, then this is the password we want to hash. We want to hash the new password, which is from the user form. We want to hash this password. Then this is the encryption method we want to use, password default. We want to use the default encryption. Okay, there are different types of encryptions. Okay, but I like using this default encryption. Okay, then having hashed the password, okay, let me explain something in a brief. Let me just do something you understand here, then I'll come back to the explanation. Let's assume I want to hash a particular password here. Let me say we want to hash hello 123. Okay, let me just echo it. See the hash password? I just hashed the password now. Okay, now let me hash another password. Remember the password here? You see the values. The values will automatically change to a new hash. Okay, you see this is a new hash. So that is how you hash password in PHP. So it's good for you to have a secure password that no one can interpret. Then where am I at the password hash? Having hashed the password, then I said update password as a variable. This is an object we created from the class file. Then say password update user password update with these two arguments. Remember, we just discussed it on the class file. Then I said if this query returns true, it will give a successful message that password update was successful, thank you, and it will refresh the page after 3 seconds. Otherwise, it will give an error message that an error occurred while updating your password. This error message will only pop up if there was an error connecting to the database. I think that is all we should know about this dashboard. Let's try it one more time. I'm putting a random password. Okay, putting some password for confirmation. It says current password does not correct. Try again. You see the response there? And let me put a valid current password, different password in this case. It says password mismatched, try again. Then what if I insert a valid password? It says password update was successful, thank you. Now the last thing to discuss here is the logout section, this button. Remember, when we click on that button, it takes us to logout.php page. Okay, and this page, first thing we did was include the class file, very important. The second thing we did was to reference the logout method. Now what do you have in the logout method? Going back to my file, okay, going back to my class file, we search for logout. Okay, this is the logout method. Okay, then I said if not a set session, that is, if session is not available, start the session. The same thing we did on this user session method. Then I say session this is the user session created while logging in, is equal to null. We use this approach to delete a session. We could also use this approach to delete sessions. So I included both of them for me not to have errors, or for the person not to have issues destroying the session. Then having done that, I'll return it to true. Okay. Then on the logout page, I said then logout equals to this method. If this query is true, then redirect us to the index.php page. Okay, so remember, this is our index. Let me copy this URL, paste it here. For instance, I have two here. Now let me log out from one. I'm logging out. It brought me back to index.php page. Let's assume I try to reload this particular page. Remember, we have deleted the session. When I try to reload, it will take me back to the index.php page. You see, now we have come to the end of this very simple login system using PHP and MySql. These things can also be done using JavaScript. JavaScript will enable us to process this information without reloading the page. But today's tutorial is all about PHP and MySql. Okay, this for the logout page. Okay, let me start afresh so that you have enough reason for you to copy the codes. Okay, this is the index.php code. Everything you need to know about it is here. Just a simple code. Just a simple code. Remember, this is Bootstrap CDN link If you want to use bootstrap, you should always include it. It's very, very necessary. The next course to discuss is the dashboard. This is the dashboard. Remember I said this is for the blink. Okay. Just a simple tutorial, self-explanatory. You can do more than this. Do not forget PHP works in order to access a form input. Do it from the name attribute. Okay, PHP doesn't access a form using ID. JavaScript accesses form input using ID or class. But PHP works with the name. Do not forget. Okay. Now here we're talking about the logout. Logout is very simple to understand. Then let's talk about the class file. Okay, this is the class file. Okay, let's discuss about, let me show you the database. Okay, this is the table data, the customer table, and here the structure. You can do this using PHP MySql. In order to have this project run on your system, make sure you have XAMPP. Okay, make sure that XAMPP is running. Without XAMPP running, you can't access localhost PHP MySql or even run PHP files. So this is the database structure. You can do more than this. Having done this, I think we have come to the end of today's tutorial. If you have any problem, please make it known to us on the comment section. Do not forget, please subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, give us thumbs up on what we're doing, encourage what we're doing, recommend this channel to your friends. Thank you, and bye for now.